Finally!
So in my last 2 episodes, I discovered that almost all of my ball joints and tie rods need to be replaced. So I got started taking all that apart, even though I don't really have any experience in that. And in the most recent episode, I managed to disconnect the tie rods, the end links, and pull out both of the front shocks. So in this episode, I'm gonna get started actually pulling out the ball joints and installing new ones. So if there's one lesson I've learned so far, it's that I should have every tool possible that I may need. So while I was at Home Depot to buy my new impact drill, I also bought a set of every single kind of extension and joint I might need. And the first thing I'm getting to work on here is one of the 2 vertical bolts that hold the lower ball joint in, which is essentially like the lower pivoting point for this whole front wheel assembly. Yeah, of course I got stuck on the very first bolt I tried to pull out. That thing was not moving. But I'd learnt my lesson. I bought this really huge extending breaker bar, which would help me get so much more leverage than the shorter, maybe like 1.5 one I'd been using. But even with that extended leverage, you can see that it was literally pulling my entire body when I tried to pull this bolt open. So you can't even blame me for being stuck on this one. Like, I actually have the tools, and I'm putting almost my entire body weight onto one side, but no luck on that. So in the meantime, I tried a few other bolts to see if I could pull out the horizontal one of the 3 bolts that exist on this lower ball joint. And when that didn't work, I went back to that vertical one. And at that point, I thought maybe the socket had slipped in some way, because that did not sound like a bolt opening. So I pulled out some more extensions from my best purchase ever. And voila!
I did it.
It turns out the bolt had just opened. And there it is. One bolt that was causing me so much pain for like a whole hour.
Coming at you, I am inbound. Some more time I can figure out maybe how I can stick around. Holding out, I'm coming at you like a rebound. Some more time I can figure out.
So after that, I was able to pull out the longer horizontal bolt as well, which wasn't too much of an effort at all. And finally, I got started on the last vertical bolt that was holding this ball joint in to the rest of the suspension. And voila! It felt quite good. I was finally starting to make consistent progress in whatever new parts of this car that I was tackling. I mean, I don't know anything about disassembling suspension. I've never turned a single bolt on the suspension itself. And everything I'm doing here is just a result of watching enough YouTube videos. So here you can see that lower ball joint that was moving around. That's what I'm trying to pull out. So at this point, all 3 bolts are removed, and the ball joint itself is simply just stuck in place to the knuckle. And so I got a ball joint separator, which is essentially just this metal clamp that is clamped tighter with this big screw to basically just pop it right out. So I got started trying to tighten that and see if it would pop. And you would think that I would be scared pulling apart my suspension like this when I never worked on it. And honestly, I should have been. I kind of went into this without thinking about the fact that that if I pull this all apart, I better be able to put it back together. But I was so focused on trying to solve these issues that I was really starting to actually really enjoy the problem solving of seeing each next bolt that needs to come out and then getting to work on that. Ta-da!
It went all the way over there.
I had no clue it was gonna be that explosive.
So I got the new ball joint here. It doesn't actually come with its own tassel nut or anything else, so I gotta reuse the old hardware. But first new suspension part finally going in. Ugh. This thing doesn't move at all. Oh, wow, it moves a little. Yeah, okay, I'm glad I'm replacing all of this now.
So that new ball joint was quite noticeably stiffer than the one that I'd pulled out. The other one I could pretty much turn the ball within the socket pretty easily. This one, like, it felt like it was just one solid piece until I really pushed it.
Miata lower ball joint torque spec.
So that gave me a lot more confidence that I was making the right decision in replacing these. And putting the new ball joint in was incredibly easy. It literally was just screw in the 3 bolts and torque them up to spec.
Alright, time to use a torque wrench for the first time in my life. 50 foot-pounds.
So with every bolt I put in, I made sure to follow the factory recommended torque specs for how tight the bolt should be in, because I do not want to mess anything up, especially because I really don't know what I'm doing here. This was exciting. Stuff was actually starting to finally go into the car. And man, was it really starting to become fulfilling and liberating knowing that I was able to fix my own car. And with that, the new lower ball joint was in. It was quite nice to see that I was actually potentially going to be able to repair my entire suspension by myself. So that felt good.
So the end-link situation, which I hadn't expected, but luckily I actually already have the parts. Do you see how this boot is broken open? It should be closed. You can literally see the joint itself in there. There, like this should not be. So I'm assuming it works the same like this, where it's supposed to be a rubber boot that keeps the grease held in and lubricates the ball joint. But like this one's completely broken. But for example, the new ball joint I just put in, it's got one piece and it's holding the grease in. So I'm assuming the end-link joints are supposed to look like that too. So I'm gonna see if my my other set looks better than this and replace it if it is.
So in this shot, we're ideally supposed to be able to see the end link that I was pulling out and the new one I was going to be putting in. But instead I accidentally just got a close-up shot of my butt. So I'm going to skip to the next part.
Could have destroyed this. You can literally see the ball in here. Compared to a used but good condition one. Completely covered.
So I swapped the new end link in.
Alright, that worked. Whew! New end link is in. Nice. A little tip if anyone's watching this trying to do the same thing. The end link bolt itself rotates. So if you're screwing the hex nut after it gets tight, the whole thing will rotate. So what we have to do is use a 5mm Allen key to go in the end and hold it, and then use I think it's a 14mm, but if you don't have it, I know it's my 9/16 wrench is working just perfectly. You hold it on the bolt like so, the Allen key in place, and then tighten the bolt or untighten it or loosen it like this. That's what I had to do. Cool, so that's everything I can do on this side today. I don't have any of the tie rods with upper ball joints yet, so I'm going to move to the other side and do the same thing there.
Yeah, I said that like that was going to be easy, and I felt like that in the moment, so I didn't even record any of the work until guess what? I got stuck on the same lower ball joint once again. So that's what I'm working on here. So what I'm doing here is I'm tightening that same ball joint separator clamp, but it kind of feels like it's getting too tight, and spoiler alert, it was. And so, like the other one, I'm actually also hammering on top of that clamp while it's in there. And then this happened. That's right. Something literally exploded out of the suspension and hit my arm, which was quite scary because that was only a foot from, like, my face. I didn't really realize that this was a danger to be looking out for.
I just broke the ball joint thing. The rod that is basically the hinge snapped before it got the ball joint out. This is kind of crazy. You see that? There's no rod in there. It snapped down and kind of hit my arm.
That ball joint was completely rusted in place, but I don't really know what else to do because I'm using the tool specifically meant to pull a ball joint out, and that was breaking because the ball joint was so stuck in the car. Ugh.
Alright, so last night I got the pretty much all the suspension components off the left side pretty quick, within an hour, which was pretty nice after spending probably a day on the right. But I got stuck at the ball joint. The separator I was using literally broke. I got a new one today, so I'm gonna give it a shot again. So instead of tightening it so hard, I'm going to try what I did on the right, which was tighten it quite a bit. But before I keep really cranking that bolt, I'm gonna hammer it a bit more, see if that'll break it free. I also let it soak in the penetrating oil overnight. So I'm hoping that will help a bit.
So as I started hammering, I was pretty scared of something exploding again. So then I had the brilliant idea to do what I should have done from the very beginning, which is do this with safety goggles on. So at least I learned my lesson without anything going super wrong. And so here I started employing my new strategy: tighten less and hammer more. But surprise, I had no luck with that. So I tried just readjusting, putting the clamp back on, tightening it a little bit more. I tried everything I could because one thing that I've learned working on this car is that nothing's gonna solve itself if I'm not doing anything. And it's best that I just keep trying different little techniques or retrying stuff to see if that might make the difference. But no luck. And my God, how much I started to really hate this one ball joint that was just stuck in place. And at this point, I didn't really know what else to do, so I kind of just kept hammering at everything. I tried hammering on it from below to maybe break off some rust. I tried hammering at it from above. I tried hammering it with the clamp in, but no luck. So then I tried shifting my approach. I got the tool from the trunk to unscrew, to pull off the wheels, and I tried using that as a pry bar, maybe so that I can apply some force to pull the joint out. And then I even tried not using rust penetrant, but instead switching to WD-40 to see if lubricating that area would help that joint just slip out. And when none of that worked, I finally moved back to really tightening that clamp, but I was so scared of it exploding. So I had the idea to wrap it in a towel to kind of contain any explosions that may occur while I'm separating the ball joint from my car. And at this point, I was just pissed at this thing. Nothing was working. What am I supposed to do at this point? My God. I've been stuck on bolts and stuff on this car before, but nothing was as frustrating as this one. I think I spent almost 2 whole days trying different approaches. And then I even tried this idea, using the floor jack to pull up the wheel hub while the suspension is trying to fall down. And maybe the power of the hydraulic wheel jack, which is powerful enough to lift a car, can pull the bolt apart. I mean, because what else am I supposed to try at this point? And guess what? It didn't work. Like, nothing happened. I tried, but it was a good idea, but it didn't do anything. And then, after hammering and hammering and hammering and hammering, this happened.
Finally!
It finally popped off!
Finally!
I can't even describe how exhausted I was at this point. I mean, I had been working for almost 2 full days, and I found on this one stupid bolt, or I guess one stupid ball joint, and it finally popped off after I tried everything I could. Oh my god.
It's like 20. This is the second day I've been working on this bolt. Oh my god.
I don't know if I can even describe how good I was feeling, but also how pissed I was feeling that it took this long. Man, I finally did it.
Oh my gosh. If anyone's watching this and stuck on the same thing, what I ended up finally doing again was attaching the ball joint back to the lower control arm, putting the press back on as tight as I could as relatively tight, but not enough that I was afraid of it exploding and breaking again. And I just kept hammering at the side of the knuckle, the metal that goes around the ball joint. And that finally loosened it.
Man, I can't even talk at this
A
point.
whole day of blasting at it and pushing it, and then also spraying it, hosing it down with both WD-40 and some rust penetrant. I think it finally came off. Oh my god.
I really didn't even have words anymore. I mean, I was a complete mix of exhaustion and anger and happiness and fulfillment all at the same time.
I was gonna be so bummed out if I had to go to bed and go another day without fixing this with no other ideas. Whew.
Oh yeah, I still have the rest of the suspension to still fix. So I guess I'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you for watching.